Well, boy, am I a pig in shit. Cartier just released a jump hour. Today we're talking about one of the most exciting and yet unoriginal Cartier releases in a very long time, and today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Squarespace. More on them later. This is the tank Guichets. This is one of the most iconic, not as well known, but so far as Cartier collectors are concerned, one of the most important watches of all time, and it is back, ladies and gentlemen. They've released it in rose gold, yellow gold, and platinum in 2 variations. The rest of the collection is apparently offered in the regular catalog, and this one platinum kind of asymmetric is limited. I'm going to talk about all of this and kind of while I'm celebrating, I think this watch is great. I think Cartier did a great job. They listened. I think there is a bit of a dark story here that I think is somewhat depressing, and we'll get to that at the end of the episode, which I think we'll keep fairly brief. Let's start off with a little bit of history. The Cartier Jump Hour is an icon of the brand. It is a very kind of not well known. It's a very unknown watch. This is a watch that I've only really ever seen on a couple of wrists ever in their original variation, of which so few are made. We're talking about single digits are known even to exist in their original variation. The most famous, I believe, was Duke Ellington, had a tank Guichet. I can't imagine how any man, and I'd love to know how that man, that's such a genius of a creative mind, even found themselves owning a tank Guichet. I hope that everyone can understand in this video that Cartier at the time was nothing compared to what Cartier is today, which is, a great brand, but a mass purveyor, manufacturing purveyor of jewelry and watches. They make hundreds of thousands, right? Back then, in a given year, Cartier oftentimes made 5 tank watches as a brand, 7. I mean, think about that. Right now, Cartier turns out thousands and thousands. You never have a problem really getting a Cartier watch if you want one. It's fairly easy. You go to the mall and you buy it. And they're basically at every mall, right? It's not like it's a Patek Philippe or an F.P. Journe where their boutiques are kind of few and far between. No, it's Cartier. It's kind of as good as it gets so far as, I know this sounds crazy, but it's kind of as good as it gets so far as mall brands. I mean, I know it sounds awful and absurd, but it is true because there are just so many points of sale and there's so much availability. Now, if there were only 10 tanks being made, and that was the mass production, how many of the rare ones were being made? How many Guichets were being made? It's wild. Now, I can understand the practical reason why the Guichet is something that was not really scalable. I think the largest issue here is legibility. The tank Guichet, like every jump hour, is not easy to read. My dad and I just sat down yesterday and made a joke between Panerai and the Cartier tank Guichet, how these stand in direct opposition of each other insofar as legibility is concerned. That's funny. I never even considered that as a young man, but now, obviously, as I'm, my sight is impaired, and I think it gets worse by the year. And my dad obviously uses reading glasses all the time. He goes like, keep that watch. I want nothing to do with your Guichet. But I actually do think that played on some level a role in its maybe limited potential of production, right? The demand just wasn't there, and the collectability and the culture around acquiring things that nobody else has, of course, existed then like it does now, but wasn't as hyper-focused on a obscure watch niche as it is now. Right now, you release something like this and the lines will be around the block, and I will have you know, I have also thrown my hat in the ring for the yellow gold model, and a buddy of mine has in platinum. Wish me a lot of luck. I did it sort of, on a whim, and I do think that I'll be able to get one. We will see. We will see, fingers crossed. I'm turning 30 in September, so it would be a nice 30th birthday gift to myself. And in celebration, I'm also wearing my personal jump hour watch, which my parents gave me for my college graduation, actually. And this is a watch from the 1920s. I've always loved this style of watch. I've always loved the jump hour. Okay, so let's get to the asymmetric model, this limited model, before we touch anything else, and then we'll get into this kind of dark sort of opinion that I have. Well, actually, one more little step back. Let's talk about the Privé collection. Since the 1990s, Cartier has been releasing in limited numbers what they call their Privé collection, where they essentially reissue a modern but very true to history redesign, reinterpretation of a classic design. They've made tank Guichet, they've made Tortue chronograph, they've made asymmetric, they've made the rare Cartier models before. always a little bit changed, a little bit modernized, always very limited, and rather, naturally rather expensive, as with all things. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Squarespace, the best partner for web development on the internet. I have been a Squarespace client for a little over 10 years now, and had it not been for Squarespace and their template system and their fluid engine system, which allows you to drag and drop all design elements so easily and create a custom website, if it had not been for their flexible payment system, their invoicing system that allows me to keep all of my books in order, if it has not been for their SEO systems and programs that allow me to generate and build my SEO ranks over the years, I don't think we'd have a company called Theo and Harris. So I couldn't possibly recommend Squarespace as a creative partner, as a web development partner more. I recommend that you head on over to Squarespace right now and reserve your website or domain and begin building. Their template systems are amazing. They're going to catch your attention immediately. And if you use the code Theo Harris, you will get 10% off of that first website or domain. I couldn't recommend it more. Head on over to Squarespace now. I think that the Normal, which was released 2 years ago, and the Tortue are great examples of this. Usually it's proportions, okay? In the world of vintage watches, in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, what were good proportions? The definition of good proportion was different than it is today. Our perceptions were different. Small and sleek proportions were elegant and true, and this is what people wanted. Today, even when our collectors admire the fundamental designs, the shapes, the patterns, we still like more bulbous. We like thicker. This has happened with Tortue. We've seen the Tortue, gain a ton of weight. Tortue maybe should go on Ozempic or Wegovy. Okay, I think that it's a little bit too bulbous for my liking. And now last year or 2 years ago, rather, we had the Normal. Same thing. Normal is a great watch. I love it, but I am a traditionalist, and I actually don't think it's strictly my adherence to tradition that is the basis for my preference. In the vintage Normal, I actually think they're better because they're thinner and they're more just compact, and I think they're just a more elegant, sleek design. The more modern Normals they're just thicker. They're just more of a full square. It's a bulbous square. And they're great. I love them. I know many people that have purchased them. God bless you all. They're fantastic watches. But my vintage Normal is a much smaller, much sleeker piece that I prefer. Personal preference. Everyone's allowed to have it. Please leave me alone. I'm just kidding. I have a YouTube channel. You can make fun of me all you want. That being said, it seems that this new Guichet, this new jump hour, does hold very true. It does seem to be very thin. It does seem to hold true to the original model, even with its placement of its crown at 12 as opposed to 3, which has been done in the Privé collection before. Asymmetric, then the dark thoughts. Asymmetric. I don't like this watch. I admire Cartier for trying. I'd love your opinions. I haven't met someone that really likes this version of this watch yet. Apparently, it's more of a driver's version, which I think is sort of nonsensical, because I think we can all agree that of all the watches a driver may wear, with legibility in mind, which is the whole point of a driver's watch, this is not the one. So it does seem kind of dumb to me. I also just don't think the design is very well balanced. I just don't like it. So I guess that kind of begins and ends there. I'd love your thoughts on the matter, period. Please comment down below. Now the sort of dark thought is this. I love Cartier. I love Cartier history. I really like the brand. I own a couple of Cartier watches. I truly love them. I think they've done such a brilliant job balancing richness and elegance and utilitarian design. I think they've done such a great job, essentially from 1903 or 1908 until modern day. They've done a great job. That being said, it is sort of disheartening that the greatest modern Cartiers are the Cartiers that they stayed truest to their original design, which means that the greatest modern Cartiers, or rather the people, the designers behind the greatest modern Cartiers, the current employees, current designers, current geniuses at Cartier, essentially get a 0 for creativity. It's like the guy that named the Pixar movie Cars. Right? That guy got paid. That guy makes $1 million. Are you kidding me? Right? That's what's difficult for me. It's difficult that every time that Cartier seems to try to improve upon, to change is inherently to improve, right? You're trying to improve. You certainly aren't attempting to make a worse version of what you've already done. So you are attempting to improve. I guess my problem is that it never seems to be an improvement upon the original model. I don't think that the Cintre and its new really large design or even its dial configuration is better than the originals. I don't think it's better. I think it's worse. I think it's still really good and worth owning, but I do think it's worse. It's probably too big for the wrists of most people that own it. Originally, Cartier made the Cintre in many different sizes. Now they only make it in one. I think it's the largest and yeah, maybe coolest, but like least wearable one, right? The asymmetric, the same. The dial configuration on the modern asymmetric, I think, is maybe the most unattractive dial configuration in any asymmetric in history. I really do think that. I'm not trying to be an antagonist. I really do think that. Every time the modern Cartier designers try to freehand, right? Try not to just steal from history, to give credit where it's due. I think that the modern Santos, which I don't think is as good as the original Santos, is very good and more appropriate for the time and the era. I don't think it's better than the Santos Carré. I don't even think it's better than the Galbi. It is a modern evolution of the Galbi. That is true. I believe that it is, because it is one of their most popular models, I understand, and it's most mass market models, I understand that it needs to come into modernity and be more true to who we are now. I get that. So I have no problem. I take no exception. I actually commend the Cartier design team for being able to take a Santos and make it new, make it fresh, make it exciting, make it relevant for today. Great job, no doubt. That being said, I don't think it's better than any of the other ones in history. And now with a piece like the Cintre or the asymmetric or the Guichets, you don't need to make mass market concessions because there is no mass market. There's no mass market aspirations. There's a group of people that is far larger than your production desire that want these watches. So you don't need to make them more palatable to the masses. You can make them based off of history 1-to-1 or based off of history and improved. Just don't make them worse, and they make them worse all so often. And it's funny because I'm giving all the compliments in the world to this, to this new Guichet, but it seems to be almost a 1-to-1 to the original. So it's kind of funny that someone got paid to design it. And I'm sure it's not the family of the original designers. Well, I guess actually not true. I guess Louis Cartier did that. So there you go. I guess apart from Aldo Cipolla, I wonder who was the last genius to work at Cartier in a design category. I know that that's a facetious question, because I'm sure that there were brilliant designers that were into the 70s at Cartier London. I'm being a little facetious, of course. But when it comes to watches like this, I'm not saying there aren't improvements to be made. In fact, I'm sure there are. I'm sure that living somewhere in Milwaukee or Brooklyn or Madrid or China, I don't know, I'm sure there are amazing designers that would kill for a job anywhere that could actually make an improved upon Guichet, and yet none of those people work at Cartier. So that's kind of my opinion. But yet, I'm still really hoping to get one. And if I do, I will not keep it on the green strap. I think it's cool. It's not what I'd keep it on. I'd probably go with a simple, classic, traditional, lighter brown, like Duke Ellington, like the Duke had. So that's it. Take care. Follow our channel for more watch content.
Watches, particularly vintage watches, represent this intersection of history, of design, of engineering. Theo & Harris is a family business. It always has been. And that's because we, my family, all share a passion for this remarkable intersection. For nearly a decade now, we have scoured the world from Oklahoma to Tokyo for some of the most interesting watches by some of the world's most revered manufacturers to share with our community. We handpick our collection. We look for quality and we look for taste. We choose watches that, for one reason or another, speak to us. We authenticate them, we service them so they're ready for decades of memories to come, and then we share them here with you. We support our clients. We believe in expedited and fully insured shipping so they never have to wait. We believe in stress-free returns in the off chance they change their mind. We believe in building relationships that last. Theo & Harris is a family business. And we haven't just built a shop, we've built a community. So whether you're considering adding a vintage watch to your collection, a handmade strap to your life, or if you're just looking to talk watches, we're grateful that you've chosen us.